All right, everyone. You guys got the Jason Black treatment today. If you don't know what that is, Jason Black on his usually on his business broadcast, he'll set the time, and then I guess he's still getting the information together backstage, and so the audience is waiting and waiting and waiting, and people are coming in and coming in and waiting and waiting and waiting, and sometimes he doesn't start that channel live streams on that channel until 45 minutes to an hour after he set the time. So that's what we did today. We thought we were starting at different times, and it happens. It's part of the business. So we're here. Dr. Neal is here backstage. So we're going to talk about some specific granular aspects of his book, Beyond Death in Jail. I did share our October talk in my community tab. If you haven't seen it, you can go back and watch it. I thought this would be fun. It's relevant for the entire year, but I thought it would be a fun topic to come back and discuss for Black History Month. So I'll see you on the other side of the introduction. And this is a powerful snippet from our discussion from October. So, where did this topic come from? So I'm going to admit that because of where I come from, see, in this world, we're all living in different worlds, and not everybody is privy to the same information.
And why is it that we don't have community? Like I said, I talked about the Nigerians. They don't want, they start introducing OnlyFans in Africa. Now, they got trafficking, they got all kinds of sexual stuff going on there. But there are certain things that are Western that are being introduced in Africa, in those countries, that are not African, that are not a part of their traditional orientation. And when they can recognize that, that tells you that they have something that makes them who they are. And that's one of the reasons why when they come over here to the US, even though they're not as enlightened as we would like them to be, that's one of the reasons why they separate themselves from us. So the reason the Nigerians separate themselves from us, the Ghanaians separate themselves from us because they have a clear idea of who they are and what they're not. And that says a lot about this whole notion of community.
So, where did this topic come from? So I'm going to admit that because of where I come from, see, in this world, we're all living in different worlds, and not everybody is privy to the same information. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Big Discussions 76, my original channel. Today, I have Dr. Ronald Neal back, and we're going to talk about some specific individuals from his book, Beyond Death in Jail. We did cover a lot in October, and we could have taken that further, which we're doing today, and we could take it even further after this. Before we jump in, before I bring Dr. Neal up, I want to do some quick advertising. My brother Amal Dunbar has entered into the merchandise game, and he's making merch featuring Black inventors and scientists. So this one is has Elijah McCoy on it. Okay, Elijah McCoy invented the self-lubricating engine, the quote-unquote real McCoy. I'm sure a lot of you learned about that wherever you're from during Black History Month or throughout the year. My brother lists, he creates these images, these pretty images of these individuals, and he also lists the patent out here. A lot of these individuals have patented inventions. So this is, he's just starting out. This is Elijah McCoy, and he also made one for Alice Parker. Okay, Alice Parker. All right. So if you guys are interested in these, okay, his email address is below in the description box, and you'll see me wearing this throughout Black History Month and beyond. So if you're looking at this and wondering what it is, that's what it is. All right. So with that out of the way, let me welcome back up Dr. Ronald Neal, the author of Beyond Death in Jail, the founder, the creator of the quote unquote Ice Cube effect. And he goes by the alias BMI Reloaded, BMI 3000 Reloaded. So, everybody, let's welcome back up Dr. Ronald Neal. Dr. Neal, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Good. You guys are trying to stay warm down there in North Carolina, just like us.
Oh yeah. We're in the aftermath of a serious snowstorm. So we're recovering.
Okay.
It's all good. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll jump right in. The list is a little shorter this time.
Yeah.
What let's see, that was February. It's about 5 months ago. What have you been up to since that last time we spoke?
Just teaching, man. That's all. You know, this is spring semester, and you know, of a new year, academic year, or the second part of an academic year. And so just teaching, bro. That's about it. Doing my trade as a professor, scholar. That's
and
it.
I know your background is in religious studies. Is that the bulk of what you're okay?
Mm-hmm.
And Wake Forest, is that Presbyterian? Or is that
Baptist? That's the back. It's Baptist in origin. History and background. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know a lot of folks have left TikTok. I'm still on. I know that you're still on. They zeroed out my last offering, so I'm thinking about, and I'm seeing all this conspiracy stuff about why we should leave TikTok. But I watched a couple of your TikToks. What do you make of, in as much detail, because we don't want to get ourselves in trouble. But what do you make of what's happening now? The unrest in Minnesota, and the Black involvement or lack thereof. What do you make of some of these nationwide things that are going on, or even global, if you have opinions on that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Trump campaigned on deporting immigrants. You know, he's that was his thing in 2016. He didn't leave it. When he came back in 2024, you know, he doubled down on it and everything. Everyone knew, those who, you know, voted for him and those who were opposed to him, everyone knew where he stood on immigration, and he said clearly. And you know, it was very dramatic, and it was not possible. So he would, you know, undertake the most like massive deportation program in the history of the United States, and you know, 10 million people came in under Biden. Listen, man, there's no way you're going to deport 10 million people. You know, I mean, I was like, that's not going to happen. You know, you're going to deport some people, but you're not going to deport all those people. You understand? But he's acting on what he said he was going to do, and there was no discussion on what it would look like. There was no discussion on the kind of tensions that would emerge, as we have seen in Minnesota, and the conflict between ICE and citizens and all that kind of stuff like that, and people Renee Good and the guy, I believe his name was Alex Pretty. I think his name
Yep.
is Pretty. Yeah. And, those casualties, no one predicted that or anticipated that and what have you. So it's a very difficult, it's a very, very difficult thing. I will say this, because you asked me directly, what do I think about it? Number one, he's delivering on what he said he was going to do. So it's not like this is out the blue, anything like that, So, the people who remained here, people who are here, who are undocumented and everything like that, everybody knows who Trump is, all right? So if you're an undocumented person, whether you speak English or not, they know who he is. They know what he was, they know what ICE is about and all that kind of stuff. And if you choose to remain here and you know that there's a likelihood that you're going to be arrested and what have you, then you have to deal with that. You have to remove how you're going to move, So he is acting on what he said he would do on the campaign trail and everything like that. Apart from that, there is the protest response. You've had people, and I'll just, because we're dealing with current events and everything like that, Don Lemon and some other people walking into a church and engaging in protests in the church, protesting. There's a black woman. She was a part of that. I can't think of her name. She was a minister, interestingly, who had these theological issues with the pastor, who happened to be, at least allegedly, an employee with ICE, and they basically trespassed on this church and stopped services and everything like that. So, and then they claim the First Amendment and all that kind of stuff, and then there's the religious, both sides claiming First Amendment, religious liberty, and that sort of thing. So what you have is you have people, protesters or what have you, who are violating the law, who are challenging law. They're taunting police officers, taunting federal agents, getting into confrontations with federal agents, engaging in the obstruction of justice. Okay, putting yourself in the position. Yeah, people putting themselves in the position to be charged with federal crimes and to be prosecuted as such, and to be convicted and to do federal time. And stereotypically, when you get fed time, if you're sentenced to 5 years, you're going to do 5 years. If you're sentenced to 10 years, you're going to do 10 years. There's no no gain time. There are no loopholes out of sentencing or what have you. Those are serious offenses. You understand? And I would just say that we have an issue right now where, you have a sector of our society that is uncomfortable with law, the rule of law, which is a problem. If you don't like the immigration laws as they stand, change the laws. Change them. You got Congress people, you have people in power, change them. Breaking the law, that's not going to do anything. There's a lot of stuff going on with these protests that are very concerning when it comes down to the law, procedures, how you go about getting things done and what have you. And it says a lot about the mindset of the quote unquote these liberals and leftists in terms of how they think about America. You understand? And so there are just a lot of issues that are there. And I would just say this: I know I'm giving you a long answer.
No, it's okay.
And this goes back to the days of Jim Crow. So people talked about segregation in two ways. They talked about segregation in terms of law, which is called de jure segregation. That it was legal to segregate people and stuff like that and treat people as second-class citizens. And then they have segregation by custom. They call it de facto segregation. And you have practices and sorts of things that penalize people. And we were affected, Black Americans were affected most by, but we were affected by both, by de jure segregation and de facto segregation. But the de facto often was the most lethal. That is that you have people who would engage in practices that were outside of the law, that were punishable, like lynching, okay, terrorism, and they were never punished. The problem that we had was we never had laws enforced to protect us. You understand? And here's the thing: it was mob rule. You don't. I'm going to. This is my perspective. You don't want to live in a society where you have mob rule. I don't care whether it's right wing. I don't care if the mob is coming from the right or the left. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. Mob rule is problematic, man. When the mob goes out there and sees itself as a law unto itself, and it doesn't recognize anything, yeah, and they're not out there, and it's not like they're out there. This is not a real protest against government and the government impinging its right on citizens, because the people that they're seeking to defend they're not citizens of the United States. You understand? You know, the people some of these folks have tried to compare this stuff to the civil rights movement. This has nothing to do. This immigrant situation has absolutely nothing to do with civil rights at all. Black America, it has nothing to do with the Black American struggle.
Yeah, that's what's interesting is I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing a lot of questioning of how much our people should be involved, and I'm seeing quite a few people saying, you know what, this isn't our fight. And even some saying, you know, well, these groups in question didn't want to be associated with us anyway.
Yeah.
So you know, you get what you get at this point.
No, I mean that's and that's the, for me, that's one of the concerning things, you know, is and I wrote about it in my book, you know, when I criticized the idea of the Black Messiah and being a suffering savior. You know, Black people have been conditioned to lay down their lives for other people, and we don't get anything in return. You know, it makes no sense to continue this practice because these people are not reciprocating. I mean, it's just a reality. I mean, you have a lot of Spanish-speaking people here in this country, Mexicans, Venezuelans, Guatemalans, Cubans, and all that kind of stuff. You know, they are not invested in anti-racism and fighting white supremacy or being really allied with Black Americans.
You know what? That's what it is. A lot of people are questioning the concept and the principle of a Black and brown coalition now, and asking, okay, how does this serve our group? You know, and there are a lot of calls to we need to get in the fight. We need to get out there and protest with everybody else, and we need to stop this atrocity. But critical mass of folks are saying, you know what? Yeah, how does this serve us, if at all?
And what do you get out of it? You had a black woman in Minneapolis, who I mentioned, who went to church. She was charged with committing a federal crime. And the evidence is overwhelming. You know, she wants to be on this moral high horse that she's operating on behalf of some higher principles or what have you. But at the end of the day, she's stuck with a felony, and she can do prison time, jail time, you know, or probation or something like that. And I'm like, that's your reward. I mean that's you're virtual signaling to certain people. I mean, what are you getting out of it? You're not, you know, this immigration stuff is not going anywhere, and it's not, the way that they're approaching it is ineffective, because they're not going to, here's the thing, they're not going to change the laws. You see Biden, if Biden wanted to, here's the thing about it, and here's the thing, and I told you, I'm an independent, I'm political independent. So I didn't vote for Kamala, and when I voted the other way, when I voted my way, it was just a protest, because I protest of the Democratic Party. That's all it was, just protest. The Biden administration had the opportunity to modify those immigration laws. If they wanted to make it easier for immigrants to come into this country, Biden could have did that under his watch. He chose not to. They chose not to engage in immigration reform. What they did was they just, okay, we're just going to leave the border wide open.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they didn't deal with none of the green card or visa issues and all that kind of stuff. They didn't deal with the backlog that they had. You understand? So all the stuff that these liberals and leftists are protesting could have been rectified under the Biden administration had he engaged in the necessary reforms and corrections that would have made it easier for people to come into this country and not get jacked up at the border.
Yeah.
But they chose not to do that. So now they're mad. They're mad because these liberals, and here's the thing, they sit down, they do nothing. They complain about stuff, problems that they could have fixed a long time ago. Okay? So it's like, if you hear somebody complain about the electoral, if you hear a Democrat complain about the electoral college, and I've heard them complain about it for years. They complain about the electoral college. Hillary Clinton complained about it. Bernie Sanders. You go back to Bush v. Gore. Same complaints about the electoral college. Bush v. Gore. They could have fixed that. They chose not to. They don't fix, these people don't fix stuff. And they keep the stuff broken purposely so that they could, use it, for whatever currency they're going to use it for. They can fall back on it. Oh, it's the electoral college. It's so mad. It's so messed up. Blah, 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 blah. Hillary didn't win, and blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? We need to get rid of the electoral college to deflect from their ineffectiveness. So that's the thing with these people here, is that, they could have fixed this stuff a long time ago. They chose not to.
Okay. I have a follow-up point. I want to acknowledge these generous super chats first. Thank you to All Spades for the $5 super chat. He says salute to the professors. And also Ghetto User, salute to Ghetto User from the 716. He says support for the doctors. I appreciate that. Dr. Neal, I think this segues nicely into my next question, which is, with you being from the academy, and we're same generation, so we grew up with Black History Month. Do you have any thoughts on this annual exercise we call Black History Month? And I was thinking, as you were talking about the immigration, it seems to me certain voices, certain parts of our story have been silenced and slid under the rug, like Dr. Claude Anderson, because Dr. Claude Anderson has been telling us about immigration and what, in part of the purpose for it, for at least 30 to 40 years now. But his voice it's never at the top. It's never front and center. He's never on the mainstream news outlets. I don't recall the Democratic side promoting that voice. What do you think about Black history in this country? Do you think it's been selectively told to us?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's been selective. I think that Black History Month has been, in recent years, it's been watered down. I understand the necessity. I'm not a person who's like against Black History Month, anything like that. You know what I mean? And obviously we should be concerned about our story, year round and all that kind of stuff. It's obvious, you know what I'm saying? But what does concern me is that in this particular moment, it can be co-opted. And it can be co-opted. You mentioned Claude Anderson, so it's like, this is the issue. I mean, people have been talking about this country music singer, Shabuzi, who won this Grammy and everything. And he gave a Grammy speech, and he's Nigerian parents. And when he accepted his awards, he just, America was built on the back of immigrants, blah, 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 blah. And I thank God for my hardworking parents. In the opening days of Black History Month, you understand? I just got through before earlier today, I was watching a stream from a so-called Pan-African, YouTube channel. This lady, and this is a pretty decent YouTube channel, criticizing, the FBA movement and ADOS and everything like that, and saying it is too narrow and it's divisive and all this kind of stuff like that. And so basically you have some Black immigrant who wants to lecture Black Americans on who Black Americans are or whatever, and what they ought to be, how they should think and all this kind of stuff. And so you have that. And you mentioned Jason Black. Jason Black did this broadcast the other night, dealing with FBA and delineation and everything like that. And ABC News, there was a segment, you might have seen that, commercial where the broadcast of the announcer, he talked about, he used the language Foundational Black American History Month. You understand? And and there's a lot of commentary about that, which is a good thing. So get your question. Yeah, you about Claude Anderson. Yeah, Claude Anderson. Is someone, he is. I call him one of our underground kings, unsung underground kings. In my world, in my academic world, people ignore people like that or what have you. Unfortunately, for all sorts of reasons. But he laid the foundation. And you got Amos Wilson, you got Naeem Akbar, you got, you know, a whole host of people who have been around for a long time, who've been, you know, holding that flag up, you know what I mean? But we are, you know, we are living in a moment where we're having to fight against erasure. Yeah, we're having to fight against, and that's the point. That's important about what's important about the History Month. And here's the thing: what's most important is that we as Black Americans value it and extol it.
Yeah.
Not that it is valued by the dominant culture. You understand? Or that we're going to sit around and wait for ABC and CBS and all the mainstream networks and MS Now and CNN, and all these, you know, we're sitting around waiting for these people to acknowledge us. You know what I mean? You know, Carter G. Woodson, who started in the 1920s, Negro History Week, he didn't care. I mean, in that era, he didn't care about white people recognizing the contributions of the so-called, at that time, Negro. You know, this was for Black American culture. You understand? And he pioneered an organization that exists to this day, you know, called the Association for the Study of African American Life in History. It's called ASALH. Okay, it was founded by Carter G. Woodson. And that was long before he founded that organization, long before, you know, we were incorporated, you know, but long before desegregation. You understand what I'm saying? So the point is that if our history don't matter to us, then it don't matter at all. You know, and then the other part of it is that you don't want other people outside of us interpreting our history for us, you see, or telling us what our history is, how it should be, or what have you. You understand? So like I was saying, I was watching this content creator, this immigrant woman she's critical of FBA and ADOS, and saying that these movements are divisive and you know, not Pan-African, and they're narrow, and blah 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 blah, and this is what you should be doing. So you have people like that, they want to tell us, my ancestors, my mother's background is Florida, Georgia. My father's is Mississippi, Illinois. You understand? And I grew up. I'm from Miami. I grew up with Haitians and Jamaicans and Bahamians and, you know, Cubans and Colombians, and I grew up with the Caribbean and South America. You understand? I grew up with all these people. You understand what I'm saying? But we still knew we were Black Americans. You understand? And that's just the way it was. And so we have to value this thing right here and not have somebody else tell us who we are. And that's always been, and that's the thing, that has always been the problem. And that's one of the reasons why there is this tension. That's why you have people who are critical of ADOS and FBA, because we are saying, you know, outsiders are not going to define who we are. You know, the outsiders could be immigrants, the outsiders could be white people. Anybody who is not Black American is an outsider. So these people are not going to, for far too long, we have been defined by outsiders. And so what we're doing now, delineation, it's realignment. You know, I made a comment on Tim Black's page the other day. He was talking about some of the same issues. And I'm like, what we're doing, this is a realignment. We are realigning things. I'm inclined to say that we're renegotiating the contract. But I want to say that we've torn the contract. It's over with. The old contract has expired. We're doing new business. This ain't no renegotiating. We're doing new business based on a historical understanding of who we are. And
Yeah.
there are a lot of people who don't like it.
Yeah. I'm going to mention her name. There's a woman in my home city of Buffalo, New York, named Sandy White, who interviewed me because she's making a documentary on a truth teller from Buffalo named Mother Eva Doyle. And I did say in that discussion that there was so much Black history that I didn't learn about during my youth. And I didn't mention some names during that discussion, so I'll just run some off. So first of all, we weren't taught about. We were only taught about Dr. King's "I Have a Dream" speech. We weren't taught about what he was concerned with when he got assassinated, which was the money. Okay. And criticizing the war. I didn't learn about Fred Hampton until I came to Twitter. Dr. Claude Anderson is another one. And I thought there was another one I was going to mention. Someone mentioned Amos Wilson.
Amos Wilson, yeah.
Right there in the chat. These are so many. There are so many individuals that were either omitted and just weren't taught. And I think that's why it's important for our people to take control of that and teach that, because the school system, there's only so much time, and they may not want us to know things like Dr. King becoming aware of the economics when he got assassinated.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything I've learned about Black history, the bulk of it, I learned on my own, and I was fortunate during my first year of college, my first year, second year. That was my second year. My second year of college, I took a course in African American history. And I had a professor by the name of Morris Johnson, a Black man. He was a historian, and he was a pivotal person who kind of opened things up. But before I had taken this class, I was already reading and everything like that, and he just accelerated things. You know what I mean? And yeah, man. And so most of us are not going to get it. Not K through 12, particularly not K through 12, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it should be our responsibility to educate ourselves. You see, because the curriculum is it ain't set by us, so they're gonna teach us what the version of events that they want us to know. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like, we learned about Harriet Tubman, we learned about Martin Luther King Jr., didn't learn about Nat Turner. Okay. No one talked about Fannie Lou Hamer. There's only so much was said about slavery, you understand, in K through 12. And even now, they're still attacking. I mean, the right does not, they don't like the idea of slavery being taught in public schools. They don't like the idea of, dealing with the horrors of American history, and children being exposed to that story. We need to tell the story of the American dream and triumph, and how, the Constitution, and how we ended slavery, and how we ended Jim Crow. It's like, yeah, but you need to talk about how we got there. Why there were problems in the first place. That's and so with that type of mindset, it is incumbent upon, if you have kids, I don't have any kids, but Black people who have kids, we got to take it upon ourselves to own our story and educate ourselves and what have you. You know what I mean? I mean, Jews do it. This is an old issue. Jews have always taken ownership of their story. Jews don't depend on public schools to teach them about who they are. You understand? They don't. And so there's something there. I mean, we have to be responsible for this narrative. You understand? And yeah, and it's not a bad thing that schools don't teach us this stuff, you know, because if we just leave it in their hands, they're going to give us their ideological, a standard, whitewashed, sanitized version of events. You see,
Okay.
they're not going to talk about you. They're not going to talk about Fred Hampton in no public school.
No. no, they won't. No, they won't. But the danger is they can repackage it and throw it on the movie screen and water it down and have an African playing him, which I have nothing against our African brothers and sisters, but you know. So, thank you for that, Dr. Neal. I want to acknowledge BGS. He says 121. Watching from this side, and salute to you, BGS. I think a lot of people think all you talk about is the octane scale and those kinds of things, but BGS teaches Black history throughout the year. The Moynihan Report, the Kerner Commission, E. Franklin Frazier, Kenneth Clark, Dark Ghetto. It's year round, so there's more. He's talking about more than just the octane scale over there. So salute. Okay. And thank you to Captain Obvious for this $5 super chat. He says this content is much appreciated. And also Rogue Pill says peace to our professors. All right, Dr. Neal, let's and thank you to Mike of Malice, who says Frances Cress Welsing broke it down as a science. So salute to Dr. Frances.
Salute to her. Rest in peace. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Dr. Neal, let's go back. Let's go back to the blue book here.
Here we go.
So I thought it would be good to start with a few vocabulary words.
Okay.
I did list quite a few out, but there's three that stood out to me for this particular talk. So is it carceral state? Is that
carceral state? Carceral, yeah.
And what's that referring to?
Prisons, just the prison condition. The whole prison industrial complex. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the second one, I did have to look this one up. Correct me if I'm wrong. Ontological reasoning. That's going to come up today. That's assuming that's making a broad brush assumption and assuming that, okay, well, this is like this, they're the same. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, ontological, it's like if you make, the way I use it in the book, it's like if you're making broad generalizations about an entire group. Okay, black men are A, B, C, D. Black men do this. Black men do that. There's no differentiation. It's like, and I'm glad you mentioned this. So it's like when non-black men talk about us, when people talk about black men, there's never any type of breakdown. There's never, a clarification. Well, which black men are you talking about? Are you talking about black men in their 80s, in their 60s? Are you talking about black men in their 30s? Are you talking about black men in their 20s? Are you talking about black boys? Are you talking about black youth? Are you talking about middle-class black men? Are you talking about working-class black men? Are you talking about black men who are part of the upper middle class, black men who are part of the 1%? Which black men are you talking about? You talking about straight black men? You talking about non-straight black men? So we are victims of broad sweeping claims about who we are. We just one big N-word. You know what I'm saying? And there's no particularity, no differentiation. It's very simplistic. It's intellectually lazy. When people talk about, when you hear, and you know who we're talking about, I'm not going to name the population, but whenever this population says black men, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, black men always Black men do. This is intellectual laziness. Laziness. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And then also the last one, I think this is going to come up with Walter Fluker, quietism. What exactly is quietism?
It's basically being silent. About whatever. And quietism is it has its roots in religion, and it goes back. So with Protestants, the quietists were people who they were silent about doctrine. They were silent. They would not express whatever kind of criticisms that they would have about the church or whatever, you know what I mean? Anything they disagreed with or stuff like that. Quietists have, it has other meanings which have something which are related to their sense of piety or whatever. And they would not see anything like their spirituality was a kind of a wordless spirituality, you know what I'm saying? So it's like instead of acknowledging, like, you have sermons and preaching and stuff like that, these were people, they had a whole different kind of orientation towards spirituality. So the word quietist has kind of the meanings are kind of nuanced, you understand what I'm saying? But the way in which I use it has to do with silence and deliberate censure. When you deliberately censor yourself or you're quietist, you don't say anything.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. So let's move on. So today's Q&A is basically centered around a couple of gentlemen who were advocating for Black men and boys years ago, much the same way yourself and Dr. T. Hassan Johnson and Dr. Curry are. We're going to talk about some other folks too, because they're a part of the story. But when did you become aware of gentlemen like Ellis Cose and Orlando Patterson and even Robert Staples? Was it when you got to the university, or were you learning about these guys in Miami?
Yeah, so I learned about Staples first, and I learned about Staples when I was in college. So Staples was a sociologist. He passed back in, I believe it was 2021 or what have you. So he taught at San Francisco State University for a very, very long time. He was one of the pioneers of early Black studies in the late 60s and 70s and everything like that. Very important figure in that movement, very important sociologist and everything. So I was a social science person when I was in college. I was in sociology and anthropology, and so I was reading about stuff on the first readings that I had on masculinity, Black masculinity, came from Staples, and that was like in the early 1990s. That was I'm talking about like 1992. 1992, 93. As a matter of fact, I remember taking a course, and I took a course called in abnormal psychology at the time, and I did a paper on black male and female relationships, and I drew on Staples stuff, and at that time, we were, Gen X, man, and this stuff has been with us, and it was thrown on us, and everything. And so that was Staples, And then so Patterson, I discovered Patterson end of college. There was back in the 90s, towards the end of the 90s, not the end of the 90s, but 94, and I think it was probably around 95. Harvard had done this. There was something that, how we would have these state of the Black America type conversations and stuff like that. I was watching one of these state of the Black America things on TV, and Orlando Patterson was featured along with Cornel West. And it was probably, if I'm not mistaken, it might have been 94, 95 and everything. And Patterson was talking about the sociology of Black Americans. And I remember one thing that he said, and this was before I even read him. This was before I read him. He said Black Americans are the loneliest people in America. He said Black Americans are lonely people. And he went on to say, why are they lonely? Because the men are over here and the women are over here. They're lonely. And then he began to break it down, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then later on, I found his books and his articles and everything. Yeah. And so I really started reading his books and articles. It was probably around 1998. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna circle back to him and Cose, maybe Staples, but and then Cose. Did you?
Oh yeah. So Ellis Cose.
Yeah.
So Ellis Cose College. So Ellis Cose, for many years, he was an editor with Newsweek magazine. So, Cose had rarefied air. Cose is originally from Chicago. So, he comes out of that Chicago, Black empowerment, Black literary tradition, everything, Richard Wright, people like that, Gwendolyn Brooks. And Coates, the first book that I read of his, it was called, he had a book that came out in 1993. It was called The Rage of a Privileged Class. It was on the Black middle class. Yeah, so it's a book. It was a book about, we had, emerging Black buppies who were angry, angry, still feeling not a part of American society. You're rising, basically the anger of basically upwardly mobile middle class Blacks, So that was the first book that I had read of his, and I follow him all. I was a subscriber to Newsweek magazine, and he did a bunch of features on Newsweek. He did a major feature on Black men in prisons. He did a lot of stuff. He did stuff on Black women in America, which were like features, news features and stuff like that. Just he was the race guy at Newsweek, but he was the editor, and then he had the book, the
Envy of the World.
Envy of the World. Yeah, the Envy of the World that came out around, around 2004, something like that, or was it? Might have been earlier. But yeah, 2000. Yeah, it was a little bit early. He had the Envy of the World and everything. So I have been following him for, by the time End of the World came out, I've been following him for close to 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So to everyone in the audience, these are gentlemen from where I came from. I hadn't heard of these gentlemen. Yeah, I think it's noteworthy that they were doing what they were doing when they were doing it. And this whole thing, just like the bifurcation that Dr. Neal described in his book, this has all been going on for the last 30 to 40 to 50 years, and there are reasons why, which we're going to get into right now. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I wanted just to add this. So one of the features he did a feature on Newsweek, in Newsweek, which is called The New Black Power.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a feature on 3 black male CEOs. So you had Richard Parsons, who was with Time Warner. You had, I think his last name was Chenault. There was Parsons. There was Chenault was with, I think he was with Citibank. And there was another fellow, I can't think of his name or what have you. But anyway, that came out maybe around 2000 or what have you. And so you had these black men who had become CEOs of these multinational corporations. And that was a major feature, It was a bit, it was a stretch in terms of what that meant. Okay, so Richard Parsons was a major. I mean, you have a black man running Time Warner, CEO, and all that. That's a big deal, right? You know what I mean? But does that mean that black men, are living in paradise? No, it don't be. You got three black men who are CEOs, who are boomers for these multinational corporations. Good story. Yeah, it should be told, right? But you got to be careful about what you want to extrapolate from that. You know what I mean? Not to say that he wasn't careful or nothing like that, but that was a major. And I guess I remember when they came out. For me, it was a, it was a good thing. I mean, Coates, I cite him because he was a major, like in terms of journalism, mainstream.
Yeah.
Newsweek magazine. I mean, Cose was he was a serious voice, man, and a lot of stuff was covered in Newsweek because of him. You know what I mean? And he had Beyonce. Who was that? George Lucas's wife, Jennifer. I think her name was Hobson.
Melanie Hobson.
Yeah, Melanie Hobson was on the cover. He had, he had 3 black women on the cover of a magazine talking about black women in power and stuff like that. So, and I remember that. I mean, so there was one issue. There was one issue where we had black women on the cover, and it was framed around, black women's success and all this kind of stuff, and it was a whole bunch of stuff inside the whole article about, where the black men at? We up here on Mount Olympus and they down there. You know what I mean? And I remember there was some fallout over that article.
Yeah.
From the black male and the black female side. Yeah.
Okay.
But he was a big gun. He was a big gun at Newsweek.
Okay. Well, when we end, I'm going to ask you about their legacies. But I think it's important to also discuss the world they were in and what opposition they were facing. Okay, because these guys were and doing what they were doing, and you described this in your book. These guys were facing a lot of opposition to their messaging and what they were doing.
Oh yeah.
Which brings us to we gotta love on our guys, bell hooks and some of the others. So Last time I gave Dr. Neal the Peter King treatment from the Hoover Institute. Whenever he has Sowell on, he reads passages from Sowell's writings. So I have some select passages here from Dr. Neal. Everybody bear with me. Dr. Neal's going to be grinning in the background when I read this, but this is from chapter 6. And this is discussing bell hooks and her contemporaries. All right. And this is uncontested demonic narratives questioning the feminist police. As I have indicated above, the Black feminist narrative of oppression was created during and after the 1970s by the second wave Black feminists. Such Black feminists were critical of charismatic Black male leadership during the civil rights and Black power eras, characterizing such men as chauvinist and committed to male supremacy. They were imagined as men who were committed to censoring the voices and concerns of Black women. Among the second wave representatives of this position are Beverly Guy, Sheftal, and Johnetta Cole. Their 2003 book, Gender Talk, The Struggle for Women's Equality in African American Communities, encapsulates this position. More recently, during the decade of death, 2012 to 2022, the same perspective was taken up in 2018 by political scientist Barbara Ransby in Making All Black Lives Matter, Reimagining Freedom in the 21st Century. Ironically, the Black feminist narrative of oppression is contrasted by a competing narrative of Black women's agency. This narrative of agency is forwarded by women of the same generation as well as women slightly younger than Sheftal and Cole. Black women scholars such as Evelyn Brooks Higginbotham, Marcia Riggs, Rosetta Ross, Emily Towns, Dolores S. Williams, and Patricia Hill Collins have since the 1980s produced significant works on Black women's activism over the centuries. So they had their own Avengers. In summary, their own Avengers. So Dr. Neal, you're muted. You're muted. Let me unmute you.
Yeah.
Okay. So they had their own, that was a whole conglomerate of Black female feminist writers. Okay.
Yeah. So I tell you what I do sometimes in class, and when my students and what have you, and we deal with some of these issues, because there's this mythology that exists that says that Black women have never had a voice in Black American society. That Black women have historically been silenced, and no one listens to Black women. Okay, and it wasn't until the 70s with the feminists that the Black female voice became a thing. Okay, it's a lie. It's a complete, utter lie. They've always had a voice. Okay. And basically what happened after the 1970s is that it just the floodgates opened for more voices. Okay. And a whole economy emerged around their voices and everything, and when they did speak, they drew on the past, and so when Bell Hooks is talking about, they want to march Sojourner Truth, or they talk about the people like Nannie Helen Burroughs, they talk about Amy Jacques Garvey. There are a whole bunch of women, Polly Murray, history is littered with elite Black women voices. You understand? And so there's that. But what I was doing in that passage right there, was questioning the feminist interpretation. Basically, it's a questioning of the feminist interpretation of history. And I'm basically what I'm saying is their interpretation of history is wrong. That it's not their readings, of history where they're saying that it's driven by patriarchy is wrong. And it's deliberately wrong, and it's ideological. And they created a victim narrative of subordination that doesn't hold water to empirical tests. It doesn't. And what happened in the 80s and the 90s and in the 2000s, these narratives were allowed to circulate without any type of challenge. And so they became like Holy Grail. And you were not supposed to challenge this stuff. You were not supposed to question it, because it was like, this is holy scripture. And I mentioned Beverly Guy Sheftall, and I mentioned Johnetta Cole, both of them Spelman people, and they were, these women, part of that the book that they wrote, it was called Gender Talk. Part of their writing that book had to do with their disdain for hip hop at the time, and they just assumed that hip hop, again, ontological reasoning, that hip hop was a representation of all Black masculinity, and then they oh, these misogynists, these sexists, and and oh, they calling us the B words, and they calling us the H words and stuff like that, and so it's like, oh, yeah, we need re-education, and we got to educate the young people about feminism and all that kind of stuff, and and that gave them another they use hip hop as another opportunity to regurgitate this problematic victim narrative, this patriarchal thing. And so I was like, yeah, y'all wrong. The way y'all read history is wrong, and not only wrong, but you read it in ways that are racist. Because that's one of the things I say in that chapter is that they read stuff like racist. And it is what it is.
Okay. BGS, he regularly mentions Pauli Murray, who was clicked up with Eleanor Roosevelt.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I want to thank Minister Misty for the $10 super chat, and also thank you to Triv for the Cash App, the $5 Cash App. So Dr. Neal, so I want to show this really, really quickly. So I mean, we've talked about these people. For the younger people out there, this is actually, this is Bell Hooks here. We've talked about her, but that's her right there. She has, and I noticed this earlier. She has her own page at the National African American History Museum. So she's well loved by many, and she even in her death, she has her own following. Okay.
Oh, and, yeah. She and that was the thing. I mean, she was the most mainstream Black feminist voice of her generation. What's interesting about Bell Hooks is that she never, she called herself a feminist. She never called herself a Black feminist.
Okay.
Which means something. Yeah, she never called herself a Black feminist. She called herself a feminist. And I think, and that distinction is, because she didn't agree. They didn't get along. Here's the thing. Black women don't get along. Okay. And she didn't get along with them people, you know, her other black women feminists and stuff like that. And as a matter of fact, she was like a lone wolf. Okay,
Interesting.
apart from those black feminists, you know what I mean? And yeah, so and I think some of it had to do with the fact, you know, Bell Hooks came from she came from a working class family. And she, you know, Bell Hooks was from Kentucky.
Okay.
And yeah, and her, you know, her daddy was just a traditional Southern blue collar man, you know, and her mama, homemaker and stuff like that. And the other black feminists, so the people who I mentioned, so Beverly Guy Sheftall and Johnetta Cole, and I will throw Alice Walker into that mix as well.
Okay.
They all came from like middle class families.
Okay.
Yeah, bourgeois. So they didn't grow up in the same. They didn't. Bell Hooks did not come through the same social circles as these women. Okay. And like the Spelman groups. So those Spelman women, you know, these women come from generations of Spelman graduates. You know, Spelman is like, you know, the Harvard for black women. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, and so, you know, it's very elitist and everything like that. You know, and so you have class differentials that exist among black women that are hardly dealt with. And Bell Hooks wrote a lot about class.
Yeah.
And she wrote a lot about the friction that she created and even encountered with black women who did not want to deal with class and who were obsessed with status and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so what I'm illuminating why she called herself a feminist, not a black feminist.
Not a black feminist.
Yeah, and so some of it has to do with class differences.
Okay.
Background differences, because she didn't associate with them, because she didn't grow up with them.
Well, you know, Dr. Neal, what's funny is as I was looking at her picture earlier, I was looking and thinking, this is no disrespect, but she looks like you know, that humanities, women's studies,
yeah,
sister in graduate school. She's got the 4 braids, and she's got the plump face, the plump kind of awkward face. So she didn't look like someone as polished as Johnetta Cole here. So everybody, this is Johnetta Cole for the young people watching who weren't alive at that time. This is Johnetta Cole, and I remember them doing features on her in Essence, and I'll say maybe Ebony, Jet, that whole circuit. And I think she helped, along with Bill Cosby, raise HBCUs back into the. We all got to go to HBCUs. So this woman was a big deal. I mean, she was presented as a big deal at that time.
Oh yeah. And you know, they were probably this is your, you know, black elite. And one thing you have to understand, you know, with black feminism, when you look at Cole and even Sheftall and what have you, and what they've represented, you know, this is bourgeois. This is black bourgeois feminism. These are bourgeois black women.
Okay.
And meaning that they, you know, they accept the class structure in America, and status seeking is their thing. You know what I mean? And they exist in close proximity to white people with status and money and everything like that. You know, I mean, it goes back. I mean, Spelman College is I mean, Laura Spelman, she was the daughter of one of the, I believe, the Rockefellers or what have you. You know, I mean, it was funded from the very beginning by rich white people, the early millionaires in this country. You know what I mean? And so they've been tied into white money for a very long time. And so this is your black, what, E. Franklin Frazier wrote about them in the 50s, the black
Yeah.
bourgeoisie and everything. And so so these women right here, she was Johnetta Cole is an anthropologist by training.
Yes.
But their organic ties to the masses of black people, or what we call the black majority, black working class, whatever you want to call it, their ties have always been questionable. And who they speak for has always been questionable. They don't speak for, they've never spoken for all black women. They've never represented the universal experience of black women, and so, they have a particular ideological perspective that they have maintained. And so all the women that I've mentioned in that passage, so here's the thing, the passage, all those names,
Mm-hmm.
I put those names out there because it's like we have a narrative. We have complex narratives about black women produced by black women. Okay, and you can't reduce the story of black women to victimization. You see, you have these feminists, Sheftal and Cole. They want to reduce everything to victimhood. And that's not the story of black women. It's not, you can't reduce it to being a victim. And that's the problem with it. You understand? When you look at the church, history, the history of women, black women in churches, it ain't a story of just abject victimization. You understand? And when you look at education, if black women have been more educated than black men historically, in terms of degrees, college education, the story that you tell about black women in terms of college and higher education is not a story of victimization on the part that is them being victimized by black men. The fact that black women have always worked and they have to work outside the home, and most of them have not had the luxury of being stay-at-home mothers, it is a part of a story that you can't reduce that to some patriarchy. They had to work. You had women who had to work as maids. He had to work as cooks. They had to work all kinds of jobs outside the home because patriarchy it didn't exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that gets back to the ontological reasoning. And I know Hook's, her big thing was the patriarchy. Everything was went back to the patriarchy.
No husband, no kids. She never got married. Complained about the patriarchy. Spent all her lives working with white people. She made good money. Never went hungry. White people lifted her up. White people propped her up. White people kept her afloat. Where's the black patriarchy in that?
Okay.
You got, and here's, I want the brothers to get this. So you have women. Remember Kevin said, buy a dog or die alone? If you got women who are going home going to condos, empty condos, no man, no husband, no lover. They're going to empty apartments, no man, no husband, no lover. They're going to empty houses. And when black women buy houses, they don't just get 1-bedroom houses or 2-bedroom houses. They got to get multiple bedrooms, even if they don't have kids. And they're not going home to a husband. And a lot of these women don't have any kids. How are you going to talk about patriarchy when you're not married and you don't have any kids? The most basic, elemental feature of patriarchy is the family. It's the family. If you are not attached to a man and children, and you were paying your own bills, how are you crying about the patriarchy, black patriarchy?
Dr. Neal, thank you for clarifying that, because the definition that when we hear people talking, the only delineating thing is men rule. It's not whether or not there's a family. It's not whether or not there's children. It's men rule. That's the only, or perceived men rule.
And that's the nonsensical ontological reasoning that I'm talking about. Just men. Oh, men dominate the world. Men run the world. Men are responsible for all the violence in the world. It doesn't require any type of critical thought. It doesn't. You don't have to think about men in terms of a pyramid, a hierarchy. You don't have to think about men in terms of a pyramid. That there are those who are at the top, and then you have those who are at the very bottom, and then you have those who are in the middle. There's a pyramid, there's a hierarchy of masculinity that has existed across cultures and civilizations. But these people are too intellectually lazy and to think about this stuff. And they have not been challenged to think about this stuff outside of their ontological understandings of men. Laziness.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, I'm learning so much. I thank you for sharing that. There was a class piece there, and Bell Hooks wasn't a part of the Johnetta Cole tent.
No.
Okay.
And class matters. Class matters. And it's the class matters. And BGS is here. You talk about octane. You're saying it's not just, there's more to BGS than just the octane. You know what I wanted to say? You know what I wanted when you said that?
What's that?
When you said that, I wanted to say, but the octane scale matters.
It does.
The octane scale matters. No. The octane scale is real. The octane scale is real and it matters. And when BGS and even Rom Wheels, when they talk about the octane scale, they talk about it in relationship to class. And we don't like Black Americans. Here's the thing. Black Americans in particular, and Americans, let's just say white Americans. White Americans in general, don't like talking about class. Americans don't like talking about class. We pretend that class doesn't exist. And you got that book in your hand right there.
Yeah, and that's why in the late 1990s, when I saw Lawrence Otis Graham and Dr. Michael Eric Dyson on Tavis Smiley, that's why Michael Eric Dyson was trying to rip Lawrence Graham a new one, because I don't think he wanted this type of thing celebrated and discussed. And I appreciate Lawrence Otis Graham for writing this, because
And here's the thing: two different classes.
Two different classes. Yep.
Yeah, because Dyson comes from Detroit. Dyson comes from working class Detroit. Graham comes from this. Dyson comes from this.
From the old guard, an old guard black family, and that's what he talks about.
No.
Old guard.
Yeah. No, Graham. Yeah. I mean, Dyson comes from Rust Belt, GM,
yep.
Ford, Detroit, Motown. I'll put Motown because Motown was a class aspiration, but I'm put like this. Yeah. Working class Detroit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So people watching this, in addition to reading Dr. Neal's book, if you haven't read this is a good book. This if you come from the Rust Belt and you go down to Spelman or Morehouse or Howard or Hampton, this you need to know this. You're going to run into people there who come from a different walk of life than you do. Go ahead.
And that's why, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this with the audience. We were chatting before we came on the air. You mind? You're in DC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Washington DC. I mean, you have a DC. That book, DC is in that book.
DC is in the book.
The DC elite.
The neighborhoods.
The DC elite, bro.
Yeah.
Prince George County.
Prince George County.
Prince George County.
LaDroit Park. Yeah, all of it.
How you gonna talk about the black elite without talking about DC? Come on, man.
Okay. All right. So Ellis Cose, Orlando Patterson, and we'll do Robert Smalls just a little bit. Okay, so I have another passage here.
Yeah.
I did this one in the first our first talk. Okay, everybody. So this is the death of a nation, Black masculinity, and the failures of Black leadership. Despite the well-intentioned efforts of Cose's work as an intervention, it was dismissed by feminist critics as an unimaginative response to the condition of Black men and boys in America. The most prominent feminist critic of Cose's book was the now deceased Bell Hooks, the Black feminist writer and theorist whose writings on Black men and masculinity were widely circulated, hugely influential in colleges and universities, and popular among middle-class women. Bell Hooks took exception to Cose's outlook and approach to the lives of Black men and boys in The Envy of the World in her widely read 2004 book, We Real Cool, Black Men and Masculinity. In We Real Cool, the work of Ellis Cose did not meet her calculus of the Black male existence, nor did it meet the moral standards by which she measured the lives of Black men and boys. Okay, so Dr. Neal was Cose. Was he a bootstraps guy? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Because I think in the book you said you didn't agree with everything that he said. Was he a bit of an elitist himself, or?
I wouldn't call him elitist. It was like I said in the chapter, it was Booker T. Washington-esque. So Cose doesn't come from the super elite. And he's is very realistic. Ellis Cose, yeah. So he was basically, you got the man up, and nobody's coming to save you. Stuff that we've heard all our lives. But he had his own way of articulating it. The book is it's a book. It's basic. It's kind of it's a book. It's a stoic. It's a book of stoicism.
Okay.
Yeah. It's and the envy. So the envy of the world is the title. He got it from a Toni Morrison novel. Yeah. So
okay.
I believe the novel was Sula. So there's a passage in the Toni Morrison novel where you have a woman who's talking to a Black man, and she's just talking about how, how wonderful it must be to be a Black man and to have all these people, women fawning all over you and blah, blah, blah. And everybody want to be like you and stuff like that. And they're trying to copy your styles and everything like that. It must be nice being the envy of the world. So that's where he got the title from. He got it from Toni Morrison novel. Excuse me, a Toni Morrison novel. And it's a good title for a book. I ain't gonna lie, I like it. It's a good title for a book. Yeah. And but it is, it's a stoic book. I didn't agree with a lot of his assessments. Bell Hooks did not like the book because it didn't challenge white supremacy sufficiently.
Okay.
Yeah, so her book came out after his, called the We Real Cool and everything like that. So Bell Hooks was on this thing that and you hear this, you might have heard the stuff on social media. And it's just stuff that people don't think about. It's like, why y'all fighting us? Y'all need to be fighting the real enemy, and y'all need to be fighting these white supremacy and fight white people. And and Hooks is like, okay, you should be fighting white men. And this book doesn't tell us anything about the reality or the necessity of that fight.
Okay.
And you're just telling men how to survive in America. She didn't like that. And because her thing was always white supremacy, oh my God, every other line in her corpus, is white supremacist, capitalist, patriarchy. That was her thing. White supremacist, capitalist, patriarchy. White supremacist, capitalist. That's the language she used. Calling out white supremacist, capitalist, patriarchy, and stuff like that. And you're supposed to be toppling and overturning, white supremacy and all that kind of stuff. And so she had these mythological views about how that was to happen. And she looked back in the 60s. She never came out and said this, but you mentioned Fred Hampton. So Hooks would look at someone like a Fred Hampton, and she would say, "Oh yeah, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be doing what Fred Hampton did. Every Black man, And you saw what happened to Fred Hampton, right? Is he here? He was a Black Panther. You saw what happened. You know what happened to Black Panthers? I mean, the government.
Yeah, it was a very grisly death.
It destroyed the Black Panthers. Prison, death, all manner of dehumanization, exile, and everything like that. And, we are the Black male population. We are 6% right now. Black men. The Black male population is 6% of the U.S. population. 6%. And all of us are supposed to be like Fred Hampton. Huey P. Newton called it revolutionary suicide. Huey P. Newton died a drug addict. He was killed. Huey P. Newton was killed by a crack dealer in Oakland after he was reduced to drug addiction after the government got through with him.
Wow.
And this woman says, well, you should be trying to overcome these white men. You're supposed to be fighting these white men. You 6% of the population.
Okay.
So Cose did not meet her standards. So she had this utopian understanding of masculinity that he did not measure up to. And so she disparaged his book and him and all that kind of stuff, and just, basically it was like, you got it wrong, and then have the audacity to tell the world what black masculinity is supposed to be. This is what I mean when you have people who, like, you're not a black man. You're not a black male. You have not lived a black male experience, but you want to tell us what masculinity is. You want to define it. And you want to say that what we know based on our native experience, our existential experience, trial and error and all that kind of stuff is wrong. And here's what you need to do. I'm going to teach you how you're supposed to be a man. First of all, I'm going to teach you how your sense of manhood is wrong, number one. And then number two, here's what you need to be doing to be a man. And I said, I'm like, in the book, I said, you coming off like you God. This is God. This is God. You are Mount Olympus, Zeus. And I said it in the book that for the most of her career, she was given that type of authorization by the white people, by white publishers, by colleges and universities, being on TV and stuff like that, to talk what we call in religion ex cathedrali. We talking about the Pope. The Pope speaks ex cathedrali. The Pope, the pontiff. See, the Pope speaks on behalf of God, church. And when the Pope lays down the juricles from the Vatican and stuff like that, that's law. The encyclicals and all that kind of stuff like that. It's from the Pope. Everything flows down.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and she's not. It's not just by herself, but this is the problem that we have had in terms of these voices. The black female voice is treated like it is the Vatican, and white people see her, have regarded her with, in terms of this type of authority. And you get to literally dictate to a man, black men, what masculinity is. And you ain't a man. You never lived this experience. It's the same thing, with the transgender stuff. These trans people, the man, he wants to, be a woman and all that kind of stuff, and he wanted to find you have feminists who don't like trans. They call them TERFs. And you have feminists, they don't want a man, a person who was born a man, born male, with male chromosomes and all that kind of stuff. They don't want this person to tell them what a woman is. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, you got these lesbians who were born women, who don't like these transgender men, these people, these transgenders. They hate them because these transgenders are basically dictating what a woman is. So I'm like, if y'all got a problem, well, it should not be a problem for you when the man says that a woman can't dictate what a man is or what a man should be. Because you can criticize men. You can criticize men all day long. But to tell me what a man is, I don't sit up here. That's why I can't. When I did masculinity stuff, I'm like, I don't want to talk to women. When I came out and started my channel and all that, and even with my scholarship, I was like, I want to talk to men. I don't want to talk to women.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not interested in telling women what they need to be doing and all this kind of stuff. And this is why if you look on my channel, I don't sit up talking about a whole bunch of submission and being a traditional woman and all this kind of stuff and policing women's behavior and all that, you know what I'm saying? And talking about what a feminine woman is. I don't care about that stuff. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm gonna speak from what I know. In terms of, I know I got my idea of what women's supposed to be doing and stuff like that. But the point that the channel of my work is that men and women are different. We ain't the same. We don't live the same and stuff like that. And so that's why I can't be no feminist. I'm like, how can I be a feminist? I can't be no feminist. It make no sense.
Okay. I want to thank Reynolds for this $5 super chat. He says, Dr. Neal, tuition, always interesting to hear his thoughts. #BM. Okay. Well, Dr. Neal, I have 2 more passages here, so we're gonna wrap up with Orlando Patterson and Walter Fluker. So that's some of the stuff you just mentioned is gonna come back. Okay. Orlando Patterson.
Yeah.
Who also jousted with bell hooks quite a bit. All right.
Yeah.
This is from chapter 1, Dissent from Feminist Accounts of Black Men and Boys. Mm-hmm. Okay. Crime markets fueled by poverty and the collapse of legal work resulted in escalated violence and incarceration among Black Americans, especially young Black men. In light of these conditions, coupled with a long history of struggle and deprivation of Black Americans rooted in slavery, Patterson forwarded the most incisive critique of ontological reasoning with respect to the lives of Black men and boys in the 1990s. Patterson raised questions about the claims of gender theorists pertaining to the perceived advantages that Black men have in the American society. For Patterson, Black men and boys possessed no advantages over women in American society. Patterson viewed Black men and boys writ large as a population in crisis with no special privileges. Unsurprisingly, the Black feminist Bell Hooks was among the feminist and gender theorists and voices who took exception to Patterson's ontological critique of feminist theory. Okay, so this gentleman was a sociologist. Okay, just Dr. Neal, I think you're muted once again. But just briefly, everybody, so a sociologist, just so you know, Hooks was, I think her thing was literature. Sociology is the scientific study of human society, social relationships, interactions, and institutions. It examines how social structures such as groups, organizations, and cultures shape human behavior, social life, and change. Sociology analyzes diverse topics ranging from intimate family to broad, complex social systems like religion and class. So, in short, I'll give it over to you. He was pretty big on debunking the things that she was saying and others.
Oh yeah. And let me say something about. Let me. We're gonna put some. And if you don't mind, I got me a little drink. You know.
Okay.
You don't mind? Is that a problem?
You said you have a what?
I have a little bubbly.
Okay.
Drink. Is
Oh
that
no, that's
fine?
fine. That's fine.
Okay. It's okay. I got a cigar too. You mind? Is that okay?
Okay, go for it.
Are you sure? I don't.
You're the envy of the world.
If this is PG-13, I mean
No,
PG. I don't want to taint your brand.
no, we're all grown folks here.
I'm gonna apologize, to the brothers or what have you. You know what I mean? I don't want to, but we've been since we are past the 145 mark. You know what I mean? So, and it's fine. It's fine. I'm having a good time, brother. And we have the Super Bowl to talk about. We have the Super Bowl and all that.
That's right.
I mean, you got to do Super Bowl and everything. Anyway, let me say this about and black men who follow me know that I smoke cigars. Y'all know it. That's my brand. So, but I don't want to taint Dr. Dunbar because wholesome man, wholesome.
Got some
my
wine
brother's
here.
wholesome. Okay, but let me put Orlando Patterson in context. Patterson is not an American. Patterson is Jamaican. Patterson is a well-trained. He earned his degrees at the London School of Economics. He's written classic works on slavery, and so the book that made him famous was a book that came out in the early 1980s called Slavery and Social Death. And Patterson is a historical sociologist. So he tracks patterns, through history and what have you, and looks at social processes and everything like that, And Patterson, he understands the similarities between what happened in the Caribbean under Anglo-Saxon rule, like in Jamaica and other Caribbean islands, where you had English slavers, and the United States. Now we have different histories. We have different histories of emancipation and everything and development, but there are things that happened in Jamaica that happened in the U.S. And anyway, the Jamaicans were able to survive certain things because they were given. Well, I put it like this: they were never disrupted by a welfare state, And anyway, so Patterson said things about Black families and Black family structures that were offensive to people like bell hooks, because Patterson did not agree with what feminists were saying. Basically, essentially, he was looking at the literature that they were producing and stuff like that, and most of these people were, again, in English. They had degrees in English. They were not historians. They were not sociologists. They were not doing deep empirical studies or anything like that. They were not dumb people or anything like that. Like Alice Walker, I'll give you examples. Like it was the Alice Walker effect. Alice Walker, she's an artist. She was just a literary person. She wrote novels and poems, and she was just a literary person. And you don't take fiction and treat it as though it is a science, empirical stuff. You understand? And so he was a person next to Staples. Staples questioned feminists, but he was a person who questioned the feminists, the narrative. And he looked at, he was trying to understand. And let me just say this. Patterson has spent many decades at Harvard University. I'm not sure if he's retired now, I got to check. But he's been around for a long time. Okay, he's a boomer, been around for a long time. All right. But he's trying to, Patterson sincerely was trying to understand the Black American family situation in America. And he was trying to understand it historically, and he was trying to understand it in terms of what was going on in the present. So Rituals of Blood came out 1998. Before Rituals of Blood came out, he had put out, there was an article that came out in 1992 where he was raising questions. It was the prelude to the book. And it was a widely disseminated article that many Black scholars at that time took exception to. And Bell Hooks is one of the people who took exception to what he had to say. And she wrote a scathing critique of Patterson and defended her position and the position of other Black feminists who basically was saying that Black men were deadbeat fathers, collectively, ontologically. We were deadbeat. We left these women with these kids, and they by themselves and in these cities and blah 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 blah, and that's it. What we do is we screw women, get them pregnant, and we walk away. That's the story. All of us do that. Not just 5 or 10% or 15 or 20%. All Black men do this. We impregnate women and then we walk away from them. And the women have to take care of the children on their own. That was their dominant narrative. And people, the deadbeat dad stuff, it's the deadbeat dad ideology. And it dominated everything. In the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2000s, and all that kind of stuff. And Patterson's was like, it's got to be more to it than that. Got to be more to it than that. Now, he did. Now I'm not in total agreement with everything that he says about Black men, because Patterson does fall victim to a lot of pathological thinking about Black men in his work. Because because he's writing, when they think about, it's like Moynihan. So they're like, Moynihan, what people don't talk about when talking about Moynihan. Moynihan only studied cities. He studied urban centers. Moynihan did not study North Carolina. He didn't study Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. Moynihan didn't go down south. And there were parts of the Midwest that Moynihan did not study. There was, but that wasn't the point of Moynihan. He was trying to understand these industrial centers, what's going on in Newark and Detroit, in Harlem, yeah, and all that, and you know what I'm saying, that kind of stuff. Anyway, so Patterson, there's some pathology in Patterson that I don't agree with. You understand? But the point is that feminists had created a very simplistic narrative about Black masculinity and Black women. And he was the big thing about Patterson, which does in Rituals of Blood, he was saying Black women are outpacing. This book came out in 1998. The first article that he produced came out around 1992, which was a prelude to the book. It was a long article where he was questioning this gender ideology. And he was saying, and I'm in college at the time, that professional class women, Black women, were outpacing Black men. In 1992, 1993, they were earning degrees. They were entering into corporate America. They were being employed. They were being incorporated. How can you say all this stuff about patriarchy and oppression if you have an upwardly mobile, college degree class of Black women who are visible in American life? They've been incorporated, and they're being incorporated, and they're valuable to institutions. Institutions want them. What Black man is holding them back? You don't see an equal phenomenon. That's what I say in the chapter. There is not a similar phenomenon among Black men. Yes, you have Black men who are college educated and who are professional and stuff like that. That we have always existed. But our numbers pale in comparison to those of Black women who are similarly situated. The vast majority of Black men are working class, lower middle class. They work in blue-collar professions. The bulk of Black men are not professionals with college degrees and what have you. They make more money now. The working class Black men at the trade, they make more money than a lot of the women because of the kind of work they do. But they're not in the traditional professional sector. And so it's 1992, 93, and at that time, Bill Clinton is press second, he in his first term of the presidency, you understand? And it's like Boomerang comes out. Boomerang, the movie Boomerang came out what, 1991 or 92? I think Boomerang comes out 91 or 92. What is Boomerang about? Reginald Hudlin is behind Boomerang. Boomerang is about the professional Black woman. And at that time, this is our generation. All the writers are talking about buppies. They're talking about, upperly mobile Black professionals, buppies. And most of the upperly mobile Black professionals at that time are who? Women, Black women. So where is all this patriarchy that y'all talking about? Where is it? And at the same time that he's writing, you've got William Julius Wilson. Some years before Rituals of Blood comes out, Julius Wilson comes out with When Work Disappears, and that comes out during the Clinton era. That comes out, When Work Disappeared comes out around 1996 or whatever, what have you know what I mean? And it's like globalization has destroyed everything. And guess who were the biggest losers in terms of globalization? Black men. So where is all this patriarchy? You know what I'm saying? Where is it? And she didn't like it. And he was, to his credit, he was like, I'm talking about Orlando Patterson. He was like, the sociologists were of his era, his generation, they were basically bullied into silence because the black women were so loud. The feminists, they were like, you jokers, you better not talk about what you perceive as our advantages. You better not talk about the black family. You better not talk negatively about us. The black woman basically bullied sociologists into not writing and publishing stuff that made black women look advantaged or made them look like they were complicit in stuff. And they stayed away from that. And when you look at the sociology, you had to talk about how disadvantaged the women were, and ain't no men around, and they need welfare and all that kind of stuff, or they need all these support systems and blah 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 blah. And the men are just decimated. They just gone, completely obsolete. And again, a lot of there was some black Americans who didn't like the black Americans with the matriarchal mindset. I'm gonna put it. We call it matriarch. We're gonna call them now. So this is 2026. Yes, we are effectively products of a matriarchy. And black men, I'm gonna say this, and it's just my perspective. Most black men are matriarchal in their orientation. The vast majority of black men have a matriarchal orientation, and will defend the matriarchy at all costs. And what happened is that when Patterson was writing as a Jamaican, that was the other thing. Some people didn't like the fact that he was Jamaican. You know, all this stuff, the FBA stuff we got going on, that stuff has always been around. Those tensions between Caribbean. You had some people's like, well, Orlando Patterson, you Jamaican, you ain't lived here, you don't completely understand us. We know you a smart man and you study us and all that kind of stuff, but you still Jamaican. You still wasn't born here, that kind of shit. You understand? But a broken clock is right once a day. I don't agree with everything that Thomas Sowell says, but there's a lot of stuff that Thomas Sowell says that's spot on. There's a lot of stuff he says that's spot on. Now, everything he says, I don't agree with everything, but like a broken clock is right once a day.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Dr. Neal, so I'm going to show this just for the sake of completeness. So yeah. I think in your book, you shared that the predecessor to Orlando Patterson was this gentleman right here, Robert Staples.
Robert Staples.
So he was a sociologist and he studied the black family. And yes. He was the predecessor to Patterson.
A very important man, legendary.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well,
let me say something about him.
Okay.
So Staples, y'all excuse me. Staples is very, very important. As I said before, Staples, he was one of the earliest people to call the black feminists out. He was probably, be honest with you, he was probably the first one. I think he was the first like black male intellectual in the 70s, to in a polite way. And you see this in his book. His first book was called Black Masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
That book came out in the early 1980s. And it's a pioneering book in what we might call black male studies, right? What Tommy Curry, what we call black male studies.
Mm-hmm.
That's the pioneering book. You might well say that he was the one. People call Tommy Curry the father of black male studies, but Robert Staples, you can take it back to him. Okay. He was very critical of feminism. So Staples was a Marxist.
Okay.
And for a very long time, I can't say that he was a Marxist until the time that he died, but he was a Marxist. He was very critical of capitalism. And Staples saw black feminists, he saw them, he saw it as a bourgeois project.
Okay.
And his critique of feminism was that they were just completely ignorant of capitalism. And they did not take capitalism seriously. And they did not understand how capitalism underdeveloped black people and how capitalism underdeveloped black men. And that they were just moralistic, you know. So it's like you're writing from the standpoint of just what you see in front of you. You know, so you have these problems with your husband, and all you can see is the argument that you're having with your husband. And even if your husband puts hands on you, that's all you can talk about. Well, he put hands on me. Well, the question is, y'all had an argument? What was the argument about? Oh, if it wasn't about cheating, what was it about? Was it about money? Was it about him not being able to provide? Was it about him, you know, being unemployed or whatever, or being unstable? Did it have anything to do with economics? Yeah, because, you know, a lot of relationship dissolution has to do with the economic stuff. He was unable to be the patriarch. That's why y'all can't get along. Because you expect this you expect this man to be an economic provider. And he lives under a system that works against him being an economic provider in the way that you want him to be. So there's a woman, her name was Nashaki Nazaki, For Color Girls. She wrote a book, a poem called For Color Girls.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole poem is a poem about this man who was abusive to his wife and threw out the window, something like that, in an apartment in New York City. No one talks about the fact that that poem, that the characters and all that kind of stuff are understood within the context of Vietnam. So what happened? You have men come back from Vietnam who've been shell-shocked, who can't get a foothold in society, who are in relationships with women. And some of these guys turn to drugs, they're on heroin. You got a shell-shocked man from Vietnam, can't get a foot back into society, shell-shocked, his mind is messed up, trying to be in a relationship with a woman. They get into a fight and he winds up throwing her out of a window. And then from the feminist standpoint, this is toxic masculinity. He's just toxic. He's just an abusive man, and he represents all men. This Vietnam vet who's on heroin, who's shell-shocked, who can't get a job, who threw his girlfriend out the window, represents all black men. Robert Staples Robert Staples looked at that stuff and said, this is some BS. Y'all trying to make these universal, y'all making these universal claims about black men based on nonsense that you haven't even thought about. Not to diminish, it's not to diminish abuse. No one is trying to excuse murder. No one is trying to excuse violence. But people just don't wake up. People just don't wake up in the morning. A man just don't wake up in the morning with the idea of beating on his wife or his girlfriend. The first thing you're gonna do, the first thought on your mind is to beat the bejesus out of your wife or your girlfriend or your children. And these people with the early black feminists, they were putting these ideas out there that were so simplistic. And they caught on, and white people were pushing that stuff. The Hebrews, the Hebrews started pushing it. Because the Hebrews were behind a lot of that stuff. The Hebrews are the reason why Alice Walker became successful.
Okay.
And Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah Winfrey. It was the Hebrews.
Wow.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I know. I know. Okay. Well, Dr. Neal, we're gonna end with one more because I think this kind of rounds it out, because as all of this was going on, then you had the emergence of apologists for advocating or even discussing the struggles of black boys and men, including deindustrialization and the carceral state and all of that. So we're gonna take a quick look at Mr. Walter Fluker. Give me 1 second here. Walter Fluker. I never heard of this gentleman until Dr. Neal wrote about him. All right. This is from chapter 4, The Demonic Imagination, Black Men, Black Boys, and Black Male Youths as Threats to Others. Writing as a scholar and activist who has been a part of interventive efforts to ameliorate the plight of black boys and black male youth, Fluker's treatment of black boys and black male youth is prefaced with disclaimers and qualifications. These disclaimers and qualifications serve as an apologia to readers of this work, those who may and will take offense to interventions, ethical and otherwise, which seek to positively address the condition of black boys and black male youth. In engaging these matters, he offers a prefatory apologia. I don't know whether that's an H or a G to pronounce it. A plea for forgiveness or any unintended harm that he may have caused by devoting critical attention, an entire chapter in a book, to the plight and predicament of black boys and black male youth in the United States. In chapter 9 of The Ground Has Shifted, Cultural Asylums and the Jungles They Planted in Them, his apologia states the following. We begin the discussion of the plight of black youth, particularly young black men, as a commons where black churches and their many and varied interlocutors must congregate, conjure, and conspire. At the outset, I want to be clear that this focus on young black males is not meant to ignore, erase, or make non-specific the incredible toll of systemic violence against black female, lesbian, transgender, and queer bodies. The focus on black males in this chapter grows out of longstanding work in this area and is offered as one of the many challenges that churches and their leadership should address together. All right. So this is 10 to 15 years before Black Lives Matter. Okay. And you're getting these elements ushered in, and he's advocating for them, and he's apologizing for speaking about the plight of Black boys and men. So I
Yeah,
think maybe Dr. T saw this in his schooling as well. But go ahead, Dr. Neal.
yeah. So that passage is lifted from a book that is called "The Ground Has Shifted." The Black Church in 21st Century America.
Yeah.
And it's a recent book. It's maybe less than, it came out, I remember the date. It
So it's
came out.
recent.
Yeah, it's a very recent book. Yeah.
Okay.
5 or 6 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah. And I know Walter Fluker. I've known him for a very long time. I have a tremendous respect for him and everything. And Fluker is from Chicago. He grew up on the South Side. He grew up among the working class.
Mm-hmm.
His family is a part of the Mississippi to Chicago migration.
Mm-hmm.
And so we call it the Up South.
Yes.
And he's a part of that. And Fluker was a South Side kid who, through education, did good and escaped the horrors of South Side Chicago during this era. And he has, over the course of his career, worked with young Black men, from the streets. Fluker worked at Morehouse College for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, he created a leadership institute at Morehouse College. It was an ethical leadership institute. It was a very, very robust enterprise that he created. He built that at Morehouse. So this is a man who he has spent a lot of time being committed to Black male, I guess you want to call it, uplift.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, he has worked in the academy. And he has had to deal with all of the ideological stuff that we talk about here and what I talk about in my book. And he has absorbed a lot of the negative criticism of Black men. But at the same time, he's, pushed back against it in this way. That chapter in the book started out, and he talks about it. It was a talk that he gave at a seminary in Chicago. A seminary, I put it like this. So in theological education, so it's he was talking at a white school. And it really doesn't matter. It matters that it's a white school, but what really matters is that he's trying to negotiate the hostility, the academic hostility that has been directed at Black men for decades. By feminists, by the LGBTQ, so on and so forth. And just imagine, before you want to talk about Black men in public and their condition, and you begin by telling your audience that you don't want to offend them. I don't want to offend women by what I'm about to say. I don't want to negate their struggles. I don't want to negate the struggles of gay people, lesbians. I don't want to negate the struggles of transgenders. I don't want to harm anybody by anything that I'm about to say. And in that chapter, I say that is a problem. That you have to literally apologize. Apology in two senses. One, you have to ask for forgiveness. And number two, you got to defend your position. You have to defend your position to people who are hostile, who you know who are going to be hostile to what you have to say about this population. And that's a problem. Because what it means is that you have to qualify. You can't talk about black men and boys independent of women, independent of gays and lesbians and transgenders, independent of any group that has told us that they have been victimized by quote unquote white supremacy. This is and he's not the only one who's done it. I talk about it in the book. I talk about there's a law professor named Angela Davis, not the activist Angela Davis that we know, but Angela Davis. She's a law professor who put out a book, an edited book called Policing the Black Man. There's a book called Policing the Black Man that came out towards the end. Came out like in the late like the 26, 7, 18, 19 or whatever, came out during the Black Lives Matter era. And in this book, she does the same thing. And she asks like immigrants and stuff like that. First, women, gays, lesbians, immigrants and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to offend all you people. Trayvon Martin had been slaughtered. Tamir Rice, Jordan Davis, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile. We saw all that stuff for over a decade. Public stuff, extrajudicial killings, extra policing killings, police killings. And it's like, okay, before I talk about Tamir Rice and how a police officer killed Tamir Rice, I need to apologize to black women for centering. That's what it is. Centering black men. And for me, that's anti-blackness. That's like you're saying that the black male condition, as it deals with hostility and subjugation and policing and terrorism, unemployment and all that kind of stuff, is a threat to everybody else. That's why TSN Dr. Johnson talks about this. Dr. Johnson, he's told the story over and over again where he would have his classes and he would talk about black women and black men, his Africana studies classes, and he would pull up all these charts about black men being killed and black men being unemployed and stuff like that. And he would have black female students who would leave his class and go to the dean and complain about him because they felt threatened. They felt violated because he's talking about black men going to jail and being killed because they felt that there's something wrong with that. It's almost like pulling out a gun. Think about this. Talking about black men in this way in public in certain contexts is no different from standing in front of a group of people when you're about to speak and pulling out a gun and waving the gun around to the people. And that's what Fluker does. He's trying to appease these people. And then you get through all this diplomacy. Basically, it's kind of active, from me, it's this standpoint, kind of an act of diplomacy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes on. I don't agree with his view. I mean, he goes on and talks. A lot of what he says about Black masculinity in that chapter makes me question a lot of the stuff that he's done with Black men, Black boys in particular, because he basically sees in that chapter, he talks about Black men, being in a type of an asylum condition. It's like we're maniacs. He invokes Michel Foucault, who's a postmodern intellectual, when he writes about Black men and stuff like that. And Foucault wrote a book, very popular book called Madness and Civilization. And it has to deal with the invention of insane asylums and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, you're from DC, you've been in DC, and it's like, yeah, we know that there are Black men who are psychopathic, just as there are white men who are psychopathic, who do all kind of crazy stuff. You know what I mean? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
DC, you look at the crime history of DC, it's produced crazy individuals. You understand? Crazy individuals. They're guys from our generation who came out of DC. They in supermax penitentiaries.
Mm-hmm.
For life. They gonna die in prison. And those guys did all kind of crazy stuff. You understand what I'm saying? It's like, remember Dave Chappelle, his first major comic broadcast, it was called Killing Me Softly. There's a if you go back and watch Dave Chappelle's Killing Me Softly, which he did at the end of the 90s, at the end of the 90s, or early 2000s, or what have you, he talks about little kids in DC out on the corner. But he was being hyperbolic and being comedic. He talks about babies on the corners with guns selling drugs. Okay? Fearless babies. Okay? And so it's like, okay, if that's true, if you got a baby outside, when I mean baby, I'm talking about 4 years old. He was, Dave Chappelle was stretching stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say you got a 5-year-old on a corner with a gun selling drugs at 3 a.m. You know that 5-year-old didn't just fall out the sky.
No.
He didn't fall out the sky. Like, he didn't jump out the womb that way. How did the 5-year, if you got a 5-year-old selling crack cocaine 3 o'clock in the morning with a gun, a 9mm, you looking at a condition. And Fluker fell into the thing that it's like looking at the south side of Chicago. He's from Chicago. So the other part, like I said, he's from the Chicago. He knows how deep it is. And it's real deep. I'm going to be honest with you. It's real deep. It's like, what do you do with the shot? Like, not Chicago, DC, Trump sent the National Guard to D.C. You were there. You're from D.C. The crime problem that's a real thing. It's a real thing in Memphis. Chappelle did a piece again. Yeah, the Negro N-words in Memphis want Trump to send the National Guard to Memphis. How did that happen? They weren't born that way. But
No.
we don't care. We don't care. Here's the thing. We don't care about that. We want to think that there's something intrinsic, endemic, something intractable about this condition. And people fall into that. And that's why that's why you have a lot of people who see the black male condition as being fundamentally irredeemable, because they don't want to you don't want to deal with everything that goes into this condition. And so it's like, man, they messed up, and we got these savages out here. And his thing is, what do we do with these savages? That's basically what he does in that. What do we do with these savages? And what does the black church do with these savages? And he goes on and talks about, what he thinks should be done, what black churches need to be doing to deal with these savages. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that approach is wrong-headed from my perspective. It's a wrong-headed approach. It begins with what I call the demonic imaginary. You're already beginning from the standpoint that these people are demons. If you begin from that standpoint, that black men are demonic, your conclusion is going to be consistent with how you began. You're not gonna, you can't, you walk into a classroom, 5-year-olds, and you're a kindergarten teacher, and that's your beginning. He's a demon.
Yeah.
How motivated you gonna be to educate a demon? If you walk into there and you see a demon, a black boy, 5 years old, and the first thing you think is some demonic horror, how motivated are you going to teach that kid how to read, do math, science, everything like that, if all you see is demonic stuff and you don't see human potential, you don't see possibility, you don't see growth, you don't see roses, all you see is a funeral home.
Mm-hmm.
If all you see is a funeral home when you look at a 5-year-old, and that 5-year-old is in your fate, you have the fate of that 5-year-old in your hands, and all you see is a funeral home, you've already determined that 5-year-old's life, or you have contributed to how that 5-year-old's life has been determined in this world.
Wow. So that's the demonic imaginary right there.
You see? So you shouldn't have, and that's the thing. That's why I said a black man should not have to, and here's the larger issue, stop apologizing for being a black man. Stop asking people to forgive you for being a black man. Stop asking for permission to talk about your situation. Stop appeasing these people in your efforts to assert who you are as a human being. You got to stop that, and stop trying to prove that you. Stop trying to prove that you're not demonic. Stop trying to prove. Now I give him some credit. because it was important for him to deal with this issue. I don't like the way he dealt with it. And even in the chapter that he has there, you know, he mentions the fact that we've had a hard time talking about masculinity, and we've had a hard time talking about the fact that young men are bereft. Young black men are bereft of scripts. So here's the thing. The feminists, you know, and these speakers of the feminists, they say, okay, we need to get rid of patriarchy. We need to get rid of patriarchy. We need to get rid of traditional masculinity. Traditional masculinity is bad. It's toxic. Okay. If you get rid of it, it's been around for thousands of years, millions of years. It's been around for a long time across cultures. If you get rid of the traditional script of masculinity across cultures that's been around longer than us, then what do you replace it with? What do you remove it? In other words, if you say that fathers are not necessary, oh, a woman can raise a boy to be a man. Oh, if you have a culture that says that fathers, that male figures, that male authority is obsolete, if you have that culture, what are you going to produce? What's the alternative that you're going to produce? And once you had a culture that embraced male authority, traditional masculinity, it was never perfect, but you had a structure. There was a structure there that everybody agreed on. It was universally understood that this is what the male role is. But once you have completely destroyed the male role and don't replace it with nothing else, you got to deal with the outcome of what you have destroyed. And he recognizes that the feminists of his generation did not have an alternative to traditional masculinity. And they still don't. And that's why right now we're dealing with this broader so-called crisis. Because the society said that traditional masculinity is dangerous, it's toxic, it's obsolete, you don't need it, get rid of it. Okay, you get rid of it, look at what you've produced. And a lot of people don't like what you've produced. And what you have produced is not good for society. Again, it goes back to how we started this conversation with these protesters and all this kind of stuff. In Minnesota and Minneapolis, they don't like the law. They don't like the Constitution. They want to get rid of the law. Once you get rid of the law, if you don't have any borders, what are you going to have? What type of society are you going to have? If you allow everybody into your house and you don't have a filtering process and you just have an open door policy, what's going to happen to your home?
It's going to be pure chaos. It's going to get destroyed. It's going to get ransacked. It's going to get pillaged.
I said, Dr. Dunbar, Do you let any and every woman come into your place, live with you, stay with you?
No.
What would happen if you just didn't, you had no filtering process and you just, oh yeah, come on. Anybody, it don't matter who you are. That's the basic thing. If you don't have an alternate structure, you've destroyed a structure that has existed, it has persisted, it has endured the test of time. It ain't perfect. It will never be perfect. That's utopia. It's never going to be perfect. But it's a structure nonetheless. What happens when you remove it? It's like, again, it's like, we deal with this with the situation. We've removed, here's the other part of it. We've removed all type of traditional structures and standards when it comes down to the female gender. And what has happened? When you remove shame, you remove restraints, you remove expectations, you remove anything, you remove roles, you remove norms, you remove all of these things, what you have is an animal who is chaotic. So if you do that with the boys, yeah, you're going to have chaos. And you will equally have chaos when you do that with the girls. So there's no surprise now that the girls, more and more of the girls are being absorbed by the criminal justice system. More and more of the girls are going to jail. They're committing crimes. They're being prosecuted. They're doing heinous crimes. They're engaging in carjackings and robbings and all sorts of activities that were associated with sociopathic males. Because you've removed all standards and norms and expectations. What happens to the children that they produce? The children are chaotic as well. So to Fluker's credit, he deals with some of that stuff in there, in the book. And the tensions between the feminist demands to destroy everything versus the structures that have kept everything together historically. So feminism is a destructive process. Feminism doesn't build anything. Feminism destroys. It doesn't build anything. It doesn't create anything. Feminism cannot give you a structured civilization. It destroys civilization. It says this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. We got to get rid of this, we got to get rid of this. But it has no replacement for what you're destroying.
No.
That's why socialism has failed all over the world. Because the socialist alternative to capitalism is utopian. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Okay. All right. Everybody, this is once again Dr. Ronald Neal, and this is his book, Beyond Death in Jail. I'm going to give Dr. Neal a round of applause here.
Oh, man. I appreciate Dr. Dunbar, man. It's just, we went longer than we expected, but
we almost at 3 hours again, man.
on, man. You missed the game. I want you to miss the game, brother. We got to watch that Super Bowl.
Well, I gotta eat something too. But
Eat something too. I gotta finish smoking.
yeah, you got. Yeah, I meant to try to go this weekend, but I couldn't get it in. So, Dr. Neal, do you have any Andre super chat. Hold on, Andre, I didn't forget. I appreciate the super chat. He says, thank you both for what you're doing, and thanks, Dr. Dunbar, for your last stream as well. All right, thank you, Andre. Dr. Neal, do you have any I mean, you've already said so much, but do you have any parting comments or other thoughts or?
No, brother, I'm just going to say, man, continue to support Dr. Dunbar. I want to thank Dr. Dunbar again, like I did last time we were together, because Dr. Dunbar took the time to read my book, and he took the time to construct questions, sophisticated, pointed questions as an author, and that's why I came here. We talked about, we were supposed to, I want you guys to understand it, because last time we were together, we went 3 hours. It was like, well, shit, we 3 hours now, but I don't care. We were only gonna do 1 hour. We were only going to do 1 hour. But Dr. Dunbar, I guess as an author, he came having read my book and prepared. That's why I don't have a problem talking with him. And if Dr. Dunbar wants to do it again in the future, I have no problem, because I feel respected as a scholar when someone actually reads what I have written. And it's not just me, but any writer, scholar. You read what a person has written, and you take the time and the craft questions, and you want to dig into the weeds and all that kind of stuff like that. That is the highest honor. The highest honor. Okay? And I appreciate this man for doing this, and that's why I'm here. And anytime he needs me to come on, and we can that book right there, that book is a lifetime of thinking. Here's the other thing. That book is over 30 years of thinking has gone into my book. Over 30 years of thinking. I did not just wake up and decide to write that book. That book I'm not detached from it. It's a part of my life experience, but it's also academic, and it deals with what has happened to us in America within the last 50 to 60 years. Okay. It goes further than that, but in particular, it's like, what has happened to us? How do we understand this situation? And how do we get out of it? How do we wrestle with it? So I appreciate you, Dr. Dunbar. Shouts out to you and all the brothers who were here. Share the information and what have you.
Yeah, gentlemen, I mean, I know he has his detractors, but, Medium Man talks about the data. And if you go to blackdemographics.com, they have the charts plotted out right there where it shows the divorce, the unmarried rate skyrocketing for us. Dr. Neal gets to that in here. He gets to what happened. Everything that happened right around the 1970s. Dr. Neal addresses that here. So it was an honor to read it. Let's see. Will I 3R says, please consider getting Arami Ose Frempong, also known as the Funky Academic, from the University of Georgia on your show if possible. Yeah, that's on the wish list. So I will reach out to him to see if I can get him. He shakes his head like this when he's talking. And he doesn't hold back his criticism of the sisters either. So he lets it fly.
You know what?
Well,
I think it's a Gen X thing, and it's a Gen X thing because we got the brunt. We got the brunt of so much of the stuff. I mean, it hit us hard. you know. And I just give you an example, man. So I heard Angry Man talk about this, like, and I don't have any kids. Um, it wasn't the baby boomer men who experienced the most lethal blows of the child support system and family courts. It was Gen X men, and because you had, there were baby when I, there were baby boomer men who did not feel the weight of the child support system in family courts the way in which Gen X men did. And I'll give you an example. So my father, I grew up in a single parent household, and my mother and my parents were not married. Um, my mother, she was a nurse, and she came from a generation it's just different. And she never took my father. She took my father. She took my mother. She took my father to court for child support, but she did it when I was 15 years old.
Really?
Yeah, she didn't. It wasn't when I was young, as a kid, right? Because you had some women who just like, okay, it didn't work out, and I'm going to take care of this kid by myself or whatever. But with the following generation, yeah, child support, it became a thing. It was it was in the point I'm making, and it destroyed a lot of men's lives. You know what I mean? The unfairness of it, that is, you know. So I only say that to say is that we experience it in a different way. And then also the thing about it is that some of us will never, it's like the stuff that we were up against impeded our ability to form families, to get married and form families. Like I said, I'm not married. I don't have any kids. But I would be honest and say to you that the era that we came up in gave me very limited. They gave me a little incentive to get married and have kids. I wanted to get married and have kids. I could have got married and produced a family, but there was so much that was just working against us in terms of this the anti-male stuff. There was the anti-male stuff, and there was the economic stuff, jobs and precarity and all that kind of stuff. And I never wanted to be in a situation. I never want to be in a house with a woman that's complaining about not living some fantasy lifestyle that she believes she's entitled to. And I wasn't going to promise no woman no fantasy lifestyle that she believes that she's entitled to. You see, you got people like me, T.S. Johnson, Dr. Tom McCurry, the route, and you're yourself. You're you know, terminal degrees and all that kind of stuff. That ain't no easy stuff. You understand what I'm saying? And the route ain't easy. It ain't no guarantees. You understand? And we grew up in an era where you didn't have a lot of people. I'm not saying that they weren't built. They didn't want to go on a journey. They did not want to. We didn't have a bunch of ride or dies. Some exist. They're there. I ain't gonna lie. I'm not gonna throw everybody under the bus. But I wasn't gonna be that dude, man. I wasn't gonna be a dude, you know, and dealing with the ups and downs and stuff like that, and dealing with some complaining person by my side. I'm not dealing with no complaining person. You understand? you know, because society treats her better than it treats me. And she ain't got no understanding of it. And that's what I mean when I go back to the ontological reasoning and all that kind of stuff. These women, it's not just women, but it's broader than that. But it's like they don't want to understand the Black male condition. They don't want to understand the Black American condition. It's like Black History Month. I told you, if Black History Month is to be valued, we have to value it. We got to want it. I don't care about society, the larger society, acknowledging Black history. It's kind of like the stuff with DEI. I got people in the universities. In my world, you know, people are on edge about the disappearance of Black studies. Oh my God, they're going to get rid of Black studies all over the universities, and they're defunding this and they're defunding that. And my thing is, and if we care about this stuff, we're going to keep this stuff alive. If we care about it, if it matters, if we're going to depend on white institutions to keep the records, the recollections, the history of Black people alive, if that's what we're going to be, then we just messed up. We're done. We're done. If the only, like, I remember when Trump got in the office, they were complaining about Trump defunding the museums, and he wants to get rid of the African American. I haven't been down there yet in your neck of the woods. I haven't been to the new museum. Okay. Oh, he gonna take money from the museum and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, let him take the money. And I'm like, if we care about this stuff, we will keep it alive. And I've had this perspective. There's a civil rights museum. I live Greensboro, North Carolina, is 30 minutes away from me. And they got a civil rights museum in Greensboro, North Carolina, where they had the sit-ins and all that kind of stuff. And I remember all kind of conversations about funding and all that, and how we gonna keep it alive, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, if you Negroes don't care about it, then it deserves to go. That's it. Sit back and cry. You want white people to do all this stuff, and not to take them off the hook, because this is American history, right? This ain't just Black history. It's all of our history, right? But it's like, if it goes away, it's your responsibility to keep it alive. So, yeah, man, that's why, in this moment in time, I love, and I'm gonna end it. I love the era that we're living in right now. I love it. I love it, man. I do. And the reason why I love it is because everything is being exposed. Everything has been exposed. You understand? And with all this exposure, if you don't know how to move forward, then there's I can't say too much. Everything Trump, they hate Trump. I voted for Trump. Okay, I voted for him. I ain't vote for Trump because I love Trump. I was voting as a protest, because I was hoping that what we experience right now, I was hoping for this. It was like, yeah, we need to move in a different direction. We got to move in a different direction. It's like we have been in an abusive relationship with the Democrats and liberals. Black people have been in a, these women talk about domestic violence and all that kind of stuff, DV. We have been in an abusive relationship with the liberals and the leftists, and we have been fearful of leaving this abuser. Fearful. What's going to prompt you to leave this abuser? This abuser has touched you and molested your kids and all this kind of stuff and done everything. And Lord, we ain't got nowhere to go. Where we gonna go? Where we gonna go? Then whooped you upside your head, making you, work for low wages and all that kind of stuff. So, well, we'd rather be with the abuser than being with the devil and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, that ain't. I'm like,
Yeah.
You might just need to start over. You need to start over.
Yep.
Start over.
Flood the earth and start over.
Take this, and I'm talking about me. I'm talking about myself. I don't live in any illusions. I got a decent job, but I don't live believing that I'm not disposable or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I take the risk. I like, you know what I mean? I done lost jobs. I done been fired. I done dealt with the ups and downs of this capitalist system. I done been poor. I done slept on the floor. I've had studios. I done bounced around. You know what I'm saying? I've dealt with the fluctuations that so many of us have dealt with. I've had to start over. I've had to gamble. My whole life has been a gamble. So if I've dealt with precarity my whole life, why should I be caught up in some false sense of security? That's why I voted the way I voted. I'm not afraid of this stuff falling apart and all that kind. I don't care about no white supremacists. I got heat waiting for anybody. Anybody. I got heat. We got the heat. If it's gonna go down in the apocalypse, I'm ready for the apocalypse. I don't say this as a tough guy. I ain't no tough guy. I'm 52 years old. I'll be 53 years. I ain't no tough guy. I'm in my old man mode. I'm an old man. I'm trying to live in comfort. I ain't gonna lie, but I'm a gambler. I've been gambling all my life, and I will never stop gambling. And I didn't believe in Kamala. I didn't believe in Joe Biden. Don't believe in that Democratic Party. I believe that Democratic Party has been one of the most detrimental things in the condition of Black people over the last at least 35 years. And that we are afraid of being independent. When I say independent, I mean being independent. I ain't right wing. I'm not MAGA. I'm not down with the extreme people, the Proud Boys and Fuentes and them nuts, them anti-Semites, them Nazis, them Hitler people. They don't do nothing for me. I'm not a Republican. I'm not going to CPAC. I'm not trying to get next to Erica Kirk and none of them people. I am fully independent. And that's why I preach independence, because and I'm going to end with this. I know it's time to go because you got this football game coming up. The Black male, the Black American man should not allow himself to be placed in a political box. Don't allow yourself to be put in a left-wing box. Don't allow yourself to be put in a liberal box. Don't allow yourself to be put in a conservative box. Don't allow yourself to be put in a right-wing box. That's how complicated and intricate and deep our experience is. And that's why we are a threat to so many people. That's why we're a threat. Because you can't put us, the black male, 6% of the population in the US, you cannot reduce the black male to an ideological box. So don't call me a conservative. Don't call me right wing. Don't call me a liberal in the 21st century sense. Don't call me a leftist. Don't call me any of those things. I refuse to be boxed. There are a lot of racists on the right. A lot of racists. Yes, there are racists and white supremacists and MAGA and all that kind of stuff. I acknowledge that. I don't run with them people. Don't want to. Anyway, I know you didn't plan for all this, man. You got it, man. You got to go, man. You got it, man. Yeah, the Super Bowl, man.
Yeah,
man,
it's all right now. It's all right now. But that's okay. That's okay. You were letting it. It was flowing. Black Uru Strike says the hardcore child support programs hit in the 90s with welfare reform. That was the flush of baby making for Gen Xers, most of whom had no preparation for what the women law and courts would do. Yeah, Dr. Neal, when you were talking about not giving someone a fantasy life or not promising to do that, I was thinking about what Shonda Rhimes said about I don't want a man in my house. That I think our generation was the first one to deal with I don't need a man. So that type of thinking certainly colored my experiences. And it's all been very toxic. Those who are in the know will understand this one. Thank you to Love Gun Merchant for the $1.99 super chat. The water's wet, so there's gators in it. I think the actual quote is, if the water's wet, there's gators in it. But it's the same. Those in the know, the initiated know what that means.
They know that's it. That is it. And here's the thing, and I'm gonna say this, and it's like, I could have been married. And there are women who want to get married. And no, we're not doing this, And there were women, I could have done it. But I'm gonna say this. Just in the broad scheme, sweep of things and everything like that. I was, we were bombarded with all that nonsense and what's love got to do with it, and
I can do bad by myself.
I can do bad by myself, and Terry McMillan, and Waiting to Exhale, and
do you want me to? Do you want me to need you, or do you want me to want you? I think that's
all
the latest.
The Scrubs and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, black man, if you have any type of self-esteem, any self-concept, any type of ego, you ain't gonna do that. No. And see, and I we got to go again. I grew up in the matriarchy. Okay, I grew up in the matriarchy. My mother, I grew up with a mother, a very strong-willed, loud woman. You understand? Who I had issues with. You understand? I loved her and respected her and stuff like that. But by the time I hit 16, we were not seeing eye to eye. You understand? And I couldn't wait to get out of her house. You see? And I had aunts who would, they were hellions. You understand? Not all of them, but hellions. It's like, and I saw how they handled the men in their lives and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm not doing this. I say, you're not gonna be my boss. You're not gonna be my therapist. You're not gonna be my pastor. You're not going to be my coach. You're not going to sit up and lecture and tell me what to do and how to live my life. You're not going to be my mama. I ain't marrying no woman. I'm not going to be a woman who wants to be my mama and will tell me what to do. I told a woman recently, and she had a hard time with that. I'm like, I told a woman recently, I said, ain't no woman gonna tell me what to do in my house. No woman is she ain't my boss. If I don't have any, if she has nothing, I'm like this, if she ain't got nothing to do with my checks and putting money in my pocket and power and all that kind of stuff, if we just talking about a domestic situation, ain't no woman telling me what to do. Ain't no woman gonna be my boss. And you can call it chauvinism, you can call it sexism, you can call it whatever you want to call it. Ain't no woman gonna tell me how to live my life and tell me what to do. My mama was unable to do that at a certain point. And when I became an adult and I left her house, she lost the ability to tell me what to do. And black women, and unfortunately, you have a culture where the black women feel like that they have a God-given ordained right to be your pastor, to be your therapist, to be your boss, to be your mama, to be everything. And every black man has to decide what he gonna do with that.
All right. I got a feeling I'm going to see this on somebody's channel in the morning. Rogue Pill says the math professor got me fired up. And then Andre says Dr. Neal is cooking. And speaking of seeing it on somebody's channel, Passport OG says, Dr. Neal, you better preach. Salute to Passport OG for the 800 Japanese yen. Domo. All right, Dr. Neal. All right.
Enough said, man. Enough said.
Church is, we just had the benediction. All right. So everybody, this is Dr. Neal's book, Beyond Death in Jail. Okay. And there's more to unpack here. So expect to see Dr. Neal again. I just want to, on the same vein of discovering your own history, I do have a copy of The Man Not now. I'll probably pick this up next. Andre, I've had Dr. T.S. Johnson here about three to four times now already. When he's up to coming back, he'll come back. For Christmas, I got Dark Ghetto. Okay, and I also got Daughters of the Trade.
Oh man, that's classic.
So these are all on the pile.
Classics. Yeah,
and if again, I recommend this one. Our Kind of People Inside America's Black Upper Class. If you haven't read it, Social Class.
Read that book. Read it.
Okay, and think about Dr. Neal gave us a huge gem tonight, which was that bell hooks was not clicked up with the more bougie upper class feminists. So, guys, I wrote my own book. This is a book about Black men and boys as well, maybe in an indirect way. The Engineers of Western New York Basketball Story, Part 1, Innocent Basketball Dreams. For you guys, I'm selling the hardcover for $27 and the paperback for $22. You could use the ticker, one of the methods in the ticker. Just send me your mailing address. And I do have an online store. You could see that in the description box. It's also available on Amazon. And when the question did come up, where could I get a copy of Dr. Neal's book? I got mine on Amazon. Dr. Neal,
you can Amazon. Go to Amazon, go to Bloomsbury. It's under Bloomsbury Press. Bloomsbury Books. You can find it under there. All you got to do is Google the title. If you Google the title, Google my name, it'll come up. It'll take you to Amazon. It'll take you to every place where the book is available. Yeah, every place. Yeah. And I want to end, we got to talk about basketball, Dr. Dunbar. I'm going to put this out in the public because I taught a course last semester on capitalism.
Yeah.
on religion and capitalism. And one book that I used was a book by Todd Boyd. Todd Boyd teaches in California. He's a cultural scholar, sports guy, and he has a book called Young, Black, Rich, and Famous. It's on the NBA hip hop, the NBA and the hip hop invasion. And I use that book because I use basketball as a window into capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
I use basketball as a window into thinking about the meritocracy, what we call meritocracy, the merit system, and all that kind of stuff. And I would love to talk to you about basketball and black men and the politics of basketball. You understand? And there's a lot of lessons there to glean in terms of black men and basketball in America and our journey on all that kind of stuff, man. And so I had a great time with my students going through this particular book and everything, talking about with Allen Iverson, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Johnson, folks from the 90s and all that kind of stuff. Because the book came out like in 2004. And, but I've always looked at basketball as, the white conservatives like to talk about merit all the time, merit and meritocracy.
Mm-hmm.
And the basketball is the closest thing that we have in this society that resembles what some people would call it pure meritocracy. You understand? Where your daddy. Now today it's a little different now with LeBron and his sons and all that kind of stuff. But where your daddy ain't got nothing to do with your talent and you arising and all that kind of stuff. And even if you had a daddy, it's like even like Kobe Bryant. Although Kobe Bryant came from upper middle class and he had a daddy who was a basketball player, he still had to prove himself.
Yep.
Among men. He had to prove it. No, when he went into that Lakers locker room at 18 years old with those warriors, those black men who came from nothing, Kobe had to prove himself. You understand? So anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Okay. Well, Dr. Neal, I appreciate the time. This black men and boys. Everybody. People have been concerned about this for a while. I forgot to mention that even in his book, Reginald Lewis, who I think he's been kept a secret as well.
Of course.
In his book, he was worried about black boys as well. So this whole thing, this goes back, and they just haven't. Without people to champion it and speak on it, it would have just been all under the rug.
He was the one. Why should white men have all the fun?
All the fun.
That Reginald.
Yep.
That Reginald Lewis.
Yep.
Why should white men have all the fun?
Yep.
I remember that. Yeah.
Ray Alexander, I played the 4 and the 5. I didn't learn guard skills until I was done, but that's a different story. Dr. Neal, thank you for your time. We'll talk offline.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for donating. Thank you for liking. If you're on the replay gang, please like, share, and subscribe. As always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Always try to do your best. Take care, and I will talk to you all the next time. Andre, I saw this. You mentioned potentially having Dr. Neal and Dr. T together on the same panel. I think they've done that before. It hasn't happened here, but that would certainly be fun to do. You just have to coordinate everybody and figure out where to take the discussion. So with that, Ray Alexander, I need to go turn the game on. But this is a really good question because I think it gets to, this was part of my story. And it gets to something Dr. Neal talked about. I mostly played the 4 and the 5. If you don't have dads there, uncles there to help guide you and to teach you that you need to learn how to play all of the positions, then you'll just do what your coach thinks you should do. You'll default to something. So it matters to have a dad, an uncle, a mentor, an older brother. If that older brother played basketball, it matters to have someone there to help guide you and mentor you and kind of lead you in that direction that you should go in terms of your development. Otherwise, yeah, there are going to be a lot of things that you're not going to know how to do and to develop. You'll become a system player and you won't know how to become the best player that you can become. So this is a part of my story, and this is an important question that you asked here. Okay. All right, everybody, let me go and take a look at this game and make something to eat. Thank you for the support, and I will talk to you all the next time. Bye-bye.